Alrighty, this is just with people news. Okay, not an attorney, not giving legal advice, any at all. Okay, it's just my opinion. I'm hearsay, so just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, never look just straight forward. Always look around you. Be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Again, arm yourself with knowledge. Use that Second Amendment. Okay. Um, Before we get started on this, I have a little bit of a story. So I did talk to an officer one time and told him about, how from an officer all the way up to court of appeals are all breaking state law. And you guys heard me say it over and over and over. And I told that officer, well, I'll create a document and I'll go through the whole process of how they are violating this. All right, because I spoke it in words, but I didn't put it in writing. And for you to read and understand of comprehension how the process is working, how they're breaking the law. And he says, why would I read that? Okay. And that right there kind of irked me a little bit. I kept my mouth shut, kept the peace. I said, okay, you don't need to. But for me to tell you guys this, all right, that is what you call willful ignorance. Okay? So if he thinks he's going through the correct way of doing it, but it's all been wrong, but somebody shows him correctly how it actually works, but they don't want to hear it, that is willful intent not to learn the process. That being said, this is reason why officers are getting sued, because of the willful of acknowledging the law. They're not reading law. They're not reading their statutes. They're not reading their policies. Reason why you see so many people out there being harmed by officers and all that. That's because of willfully not learning it. And because the willfully not reading it and understanding it, well, they get qualified immunity because they're not bright enough to learn how to read the law. And they're going to use, the government's going to use them to cause harm against you, to create, let's say, 100 revenues. And if out of that 100, one gets by with it, sues them, goes all the way to federal court and all that, well, they still came out ahead with all these fines for that one officer breaking the law. And the one guy that stands up and goes to the Supreme Court and gets rid of qualified immunity or just, monetary funds, well, fine and dandy. So the next day, they're going to do the exact same thing. And meanwhile, they're going to correct the revenue to confiscate the loss they did and make more money. And this is the process that they're actually doing. They make more money than they actually lose in lawsuits. And government wants them to have qualified immunity to keep that revenue going. Okay? So, brings me to this. There's another state out there trying to get rid of qualified immunity. And we need to also stand and recognize the only one that actually has any type of immunity is judges. Judges created a document to give them qualified immunity. But if the judges are allowed to do that, then the judges are allowed to be able to say that every man and woman who committed a crime don't have to never go to jail. All right? Sit and think about that for a minute. Because they made themselves king There's no law saying that they have qualified immunity, but they credited a doctrine to give them qualified immunity. That means the judge can give every single man and woman out there in the United States absolute and qualified immunity as well, and none of us has to go to jail. It's not me saying it, it's just saying if they're allowed to do these things, then they can do it for everybody. Okay? Why do we need the legislature to create laws when the judges can create a doctrine and bypass the law? Make sense?
After several attempts, a group trying to end certain protections for government employees will get a chance to put their question in front of voters. Thanks for staying with us at 5:30. I'm Jared Smalley.
And I'm Jennifer Bullock. NBC4 State House reporter Natalie Fahmy joins us live to tell us what it's all about. Natalie?
Jennifer, Jared, sixth time is a charm for this group trying to put an end to qualified immunity as their initiative cleared a major hurdle this week.
Far too often in Ohio, people have our rights violated by our governments, and we have no recourse.
What it will do is just basically paralyze government.
A proposed concept.
There you go. Basically, it's going to paralyze government. Well, what he's not fully telling you is that it's going to cut down on the revenue for court costs, this, that, and this, and this. Because a lot of times, there's particular strings that you got to pull to order to beat government, and they have X amount of money that they get to spend when you have very little. So they bank on the poor people to lose all their money. Just to dawn and realize, very seldom do you actually ever hear rich people going through all this. And when you do, they don't go sue. They just pay this $200 ticket. It always affects the poor people. Always.
Constitutional amendment brought forward by the coalition to end qualified immunity would do just that. End qualified immunity in the state.
It makes it almost impossible to sue the government in the civil courts.
Qualified immunity comes from a Supreme Court ruling decades ago that says public officials like police officers, university employees, or social workers cannot be taken to a civil court unless they violate a clearly established constitutional right. And the legal standards were clear enough that any reasonable official would know they were acting in an unlawful manner. Director of Government Affairs for the Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio says qualified immunity is a necessary protection for state employees, like law enforcement, and says this amendment would make recruitment difficult.
You're going to take a step back and say, hey, look, if this is something I really want to do, if putting myself, my family, my home, my cars, college funds in jeopardy because of some frivolous, lawsuit.
The proposal.
And there you go. In theory, this actually sounds really good, don't it? Okay. Well, I'm led to believe in this case, maybe officers should have their own insurance, just like us witty-bitty people down here in the very bottom. All right. We got to get insurance to protect ourselves. And, but we don't get qualified immunity for breaking the law. Okay. Just saying. He's making it sound good, and it's understandable of the risks they take. But my risk as being a truck driver is higher than theirs. Okay? There's more truck drivers killed than officers. And truck driver don't have truck driver safety. Just saying. All right? So my job is more dangerous than theirs. And the recruitment will be hard. But when everybody gets kind of immune to it and used to it over a period of time, it will the recruitment will come back again. Okay? It's just when they get recruited, they got to actually understand the law a little bit better. They cannot play on this willful ignorance. Okay? They actually had to go in there and study the law and say, hey, okay, I just did video about the magistrate, denying probable cause because the officers were too lazy to do the proper affidavit, right? Well, that's willful intent to go by the bare minimum. They just happen to get a magistrate that don't play the stupid games. But I digress. Okay? They just gonna have to go actually through the process and really learn the statute, codes, rules, and regulation, and the Constitution. Or they can be held liable.
Would not require government employees to pay out of pocket for any civil case, but it would be the government employer, like the city or a specific department, that has to pick up the costs.
If they're not training their personnel, and if they don't have protocols in place that respect our rights, then that's the problem with the government employer right there. We are...
How can that be any plainer, people? How can that be any plainer? All right? But I go again, you don't bank on them training as well. You got to read what I keep saying in here. Okay, I'm hearsay. All right? You got to read the law for yourselves. Don't go asking to an attorney, and if you ask questions with the attorney, go back, look on the computer and all that, and research to see if the attorney's doing true or false with you to either to get you into his realm or not.
Content to see it going forward now.
If you're making those decisions within the scope of the law, you should be protected.
And maybe I should agree with that. If you're in with the guides of the law, there should be some form of protection. I believe in that. Okay? But I'm also believing the grand jury should investigate that. Not automatically have been given qualified immunity. They had to go through the exact same process. If I get into a truck wreck, I go to jail if I kill somebody, and then I got to prove my innocence. If an officer goes through killing somebody, then it's going to have to be sent through the grand jury. Maybe because he's an officer, he don't have to be put in jail. That's a catch-22. I still think he should be in jail, but it's just because of my bias of how much harm they have caused the people today. All right, and nobody has remedy for it. And if there is remedy, it's very little, and it's monetary fund. Okay, how many people is in jail innocently? And how many people had to fork out all this money innocently? I'm not going to argue with on the side of the road. That's what court's for. Oh, great. So you want me to go pay for an attorney while I'm sitting here telling you I'm innocent and telling you you've broken the law? And please describe what harm I done. On a side note, in the state of Texas, check up your own stuff, right? They don't have to have a warrant on you, on the officer, to come and arrest you. Well, wait a minute, y'all. Think about this. If there's no law saying they have to have a warrant on them, that's fine and dandy. Okay? But the side note is, why should the people trust them saying there is a warrant and that's a legal notice that we never received? Therefore, the people does not have to comply because they have never had a legal notice from the officer that's making the claim. And they are being victoriously known and legally allowed to lie to you. So the first thing you should do is trust them that there's a warrant that they do not have. Does this make any sense to y'all?
The group still needs approval by the Ohio Ballot Board. If they are approved, they can start collecting signatures. Pierce tells me his goal is to have this constitutional amendment on ballots in November 2025. Local for you at the State House, I'm Natalie Fahmy.
And I hope they get it through this time. But this is the 6th time trying. Why? Why? People, why? Think about it. These are We the People News. Bye, y'all.